Alright guys and girls, I'm going to go over the types of sampling. I'm going to record these each day so that we can have them. Make this a little bit larger. Okay. I'll present and see if this will work. Okay, so we're going to talk about types of sampling, and there was some questions earlier on the Google Meet about are we going to have our project and what's it going to look like, and those are all really good questions, and I want to say yes, we're going to get to do our project when we get back, but the truth is there are so many unknowns right now. I'm going to try to, after April 17th, we're going to do some work, and then after April 17th, if we're not back in school, I'm going to try to figure out a way that you all will be able to do your project. This is a project that we all look forward to each year. We'll have to be creative in how we do it, and if you have any ideas, please share them with me because I want to hear from you all. So but let's go ahead and talk about different types of sampling, because even if we don't do our project, this is still information you need to know. First, I want to talk about population versus sample. So it is hard to sample the entire population, and you can't say sample the entire population because if it's a sample, it's taken from a group. But the population is the entire group that you want to learn about. So for example, if we have our population here, we've got all these people, and so let's say if we're wanting to look at Spencer County Middle School as our population. Well, we're looking at, are we looking at just students? Are we looking at students or teachers? So kind of thinking that through, that's going to be, if it's just students, you're looking at well over 700 people to survey, and you can't do that. So that's why we're looking for a sample. A sample is a specific group of individuals from a population that you will collect data from. And the goal of sampling is to get a representative sample. You want to get representation of the population, and that's where proportions come in. Proportions, it's very, very proportional when you're trying to get a representative sample of your population. And the last thing on this page is sample size. It's the number of individuals you are sampling, and that depends on the size of the population. So for us in Spencer County Middle School, you want to be able to get a good representative sample, but realize that you can't sample everybody. So when we're doing our statistics project, that's why I ask you to get 50 samples or 25 from each population, and that is a pretty decent sample size for our group. The types of sampling. There are 4 types of probability sampling. The first one is simple random sampling, and we'll go over each of those in just a minute. The second one is systematic sample. The third one is stratified sample. And the fourth one is cluster sample. So look at these pictures here. Simple random is, it is really random. It's not like there's not a system to it. It's just everyone has an equal chance. The systematic, if you look at it, if you start here, and then we go 1, 2, 3, then we go 1, 2, 3 again, and then 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3. So you have a starting place, and then after that, you have a system in every third, every fifth, every 10th, however you do that. Stratified, if you look at this, this looks like a male versus female population possibly. In this case, it looks like there's more from the turquoise group than, more from the blue group than the turquoise group. So in this case, you want to have a good representation of your population, so you're going to sample more from the blue group than the turquoise group. And then finally, cluster sampling. If you look at it, you're splitting your representative sample into groups, and then you're surveying the entire group. So as long as your group is representative of your population, they're good to sample. So for example, here, I probably wouldn't want to survey the group of all 3 blue people because it's not a representative sample. But if I sample this group that has 2 turquoise and 1 blue, and this group that has 2 blue and 1 turquoise, then I'm getting a good representative sample. Probably could have done this one as well, the one that's, the blue, turquoise, blue, and then turquoise, blue, turquoise. That would work as well, but you're just getting you're clustering them and surveying in groups, clusters of them. All right, so let's go over each of them individually. So one is the simple random sampling. This is where every member of the population has an equal chance of being selected. So for example, a random number generator where everyone is assigned a number and you generate numbers randomly. Or in my class where we draw sticks, everybody in the classroom has an equal chance of being selected and you don't know when your stick is going to be drawn. But then you also can move on to the systematic sampling, and this is also a type of sampling where every member of the population is listed with a number, and instead of randomly generating numbers, individuals are chosen at regular intervals. So for example, let's say I want to choose everybody who walks into the building, Spencer County Middle School building, and I go every 10th person. Or if you saw in the picture, maybe I didn't start with the first person that came through the door. Maybe I started with the second person and then went with every 10th person. So then I'm looking at person number 2, person number 12, 22, 32, 42, going that way. As long as you have a system in place, that's what systematic sampling would be. The third type of sampling is stratified sampling. This is when your population has mixed characteristics and you want to make sure that the characteristics are proportionally represented in the sample. So for example, last year I had a class of 20 boys and 10 girls. If I were to select 5 boys and 5 girls from the class, then I'm not getting a true representation of my population. When you take that ratio of 20 boys to 10 girls down, you're looking at a 2-to-1 ratio there, 2 boys to every 1 girl. So in order to get a representation of it using stratified sampling, I would select 6 boys and 3 girls to sample. Or, if I selected 10 boys, then I would select 5 girls to sample. So kind of going that way. And then the last type of sampling for probability is cluster sampling. For this sample, you divide your populations into subgroups. Each subgroup is representative of the population, like I showed you in the picture, and you sample that subgroup. So here's my example. If each class is a representative sample of Spencer County Middle School, then you could sample a few classes. So you could sample maybe Mr. Greenwell's class, then you could go and sample Mr. Bynak's class in the 8th grade, and then maybe you could go and sample Mr. Cox's class in the 6th grade, and you're getting representation from 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade. Or if you were just wanting 7th graders, then you could maybe go to my class and then go to Mr. Greenwell's class, and you're getting representation of the 7th grade as long as it's as long as what you're trying to study has representation from the population, then cluster sampling will work. And then there are other types of sampling that are not probability sampling that I want to talk about, because these are the ones we tend to use. We use a lot of convenience sampling. This is individuals that are most accessible to the researcher. So surveying your friends, surveying those around you, surveying your class. That is called sampling, but not everybody has an equal chance, so it's not random. This is non-random sampling. This tends to lead to biased sampling, and some biases are okay, but you want to avoid bias when you're doing sampling. Biased is when not everybody has an equal chance of being sampled. And then the second one is voluntary response sampling. And this is when people volunteer by responding to a public online survey, or maybe when you ask for volunteers and people raise their hands. That would be voluntarily sampling. Again, it leads to some biases, and so we want to avoid those if we can, but it's not always possible to avoid. All right, so when I did this on the Google Meet, I let people ask questions, but since you're watching this video later, if you have any questions about sampling, about statistics, currently we're in NTI. the non-traditional instruction. If you have any questions about that or about homework, please do not hesitate to post your questions below, and I'll be glad to answer those. And remember, I am getting on doing a Google Meet at 1 o'clock every single day. Hope you all are having a good day. I hope you're staying well and staying healthy. I also hope that you're taking some good brain breaks and also being able to talk with your friends while practicing social distancing. Have a good day.